All right, we're going to get moving pretty quick so you can get some coffee. I'll just wait for the marimbas to wind down. So a huge thank you to Pam. I think that's one of the best kind of non-Dries notes I've seen about the Drupal product. And my talk luckily expands on some of the more commercial aspects of what she was talking about. Basically, how is Drupal keeping pace with the changing market and what that means for us as digital agencies and organisations. Just quick show of hands, who's digital agency here and who uses Drupal within an organisation? Got at least one? Oh, good. Okay, so this talk is going to cover a range of things relevant to both of you. And of course, my clicker stops working right when I need it. So very quickly, I'm Owen. I co-founded PreviousNext in 2009 after a 15-year career as a UX person. And I've also been heavily involved in DrupalSouth since 2011 and was on the Drupal Association Global Board from 2019 until late last year. So I've been pretty heavily invested in the success of Drupal for quite a while now. So I wanted today just to kind of touch on the global digital downturn, where Drupal sits within the competitive CMS market, how Drupal is keeping pace with change in that market, and then what that means for you as an organisation leveraging Drupal. We may have time at the end for a couple of questions. So, hands up who's found the last couple of years a little bit hard? Quite a lot of you. So I gave a talk at DrupalCon Singapore, espousing the 15 years of stability we had at PreviousNext, and then in 2025, watched as our customers pulled back budgets. And so I think the lesson has been quite a tough couple of years for a lot of us included. But there is something that's given me a bit of comfort. It's not a Drupal downturn. It's been a global phenomenon across digital agencies. And the big digital marketing companies have seen their business shrink by about 30% over the past couple of years. And the publicly traded ones have been punished by the share market. So WPP on the slide background here has seen their share price fall 500%. They're a bit of an outlier, but it's a common thing across a lot of them. And what I learned in my research for this talk was that the main factor was during and after COVID, big companies and organisations shifted a lot of budget forward to fulfil their digital transformation strategies as quickly as possible. So a lot of us enjoyed boom years from 21 to 24, but 2025, we saw large organisations pull their budgets. The stat I found was they've generally halved over the past couple of years, and they put a freeze on a lot of new projects. The good thing is that started to ease this year. Organisations still need to get things done, but it's a very tough market to be competitive in, as I'm sure many of us have found. And I think it's quite clear that we've now passed that peak of digital transformation. I'm sure there's still big projects going on, but it's not entire market sectors simultaneously re-platforming as we saw in government, in higher education, those types of market sectors. And of course, compounding this is the advent of AI, and the trend in the past couple of years is that companies have actually shifted marketing budget into AI projects where they can, and that trend is now clear. If AI can supplement or replace expensive human services, it has and will. And this is before you even consider that web traffic is down by about a third across the board, including Google search, as AI replaces how people access information. So that's making it much harder for big organisations to justify big investments in their web presence if it's basically AI bots that they're serving. And this kind of technological change would be disruptive at the best of times. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty around global politics at the moment, and it's no surprise that consumer confidence is at record lows in most countries, and that has this big flow-on effect into digital agencies as clients become very cautious about their budgets. And looking at Drupal agency sentiment specifically, if we rewind to the Drupal business survey from 2022, we can see that the majority of companies were feeling really optimistic, with 2/3 expecting to grow. Fast forward 3 years to the last survey in 2025, and that sentiment flipped to the exact opposite. 1/3 were expecting no change, kind of flat line, and 2/3 were expecting to shrink. And that little green slither of someone thinking they're going to grow, that was probably 1 or 2 companies in that survey. Interestingly, at the agency dinner on Tuesday, the sentiment was a bit stronger in this region. So it was kind of, it's kind of flat, but we're not too concerned about major shrinkage. So that was positive as well. So it's an overview of a soft market, but then there's this concern of, are we worried about Drupal being outcompeted by other CMSs? After seeing that talk, I don't think I'm going to see many hands, but anyone concerned about the competitive landscape? Yes, got someone there. So I did do a lot of research for this talk, and the most reliable stat I could find was that there's about 900 individual CMS products that customers can choose from. And the size of that market is huge. So it's about $30 billion annually. The good thing is there's about 15% or to 20% growth forecast over the next few years for the CMS market. And all this talk about the death of the web, it's completely wrong. Sure, the web is changing. A lot of the content is being created by AI. But there's still 250,000 websites being built daily. And that generates 400 exabytes of data. I had to look that up. That's 400 million terabytes of data being generated each year, serving 6 billion active internet users. So the message here is the web is not going away, and we still need a way to manage all that content well into the future. In the CMS market, I've kind of identified 3 distinct categories that we compete against. You've obviously got SaaS, where you're spinning up a site, dragging and dropping content. Don't really need any coding skills. DXPs, or digital experience platforms, you've got a CMS at the core, but then a range of services wrapped around that, usually provided by one vendor. So think Adobe Experience Manager or Sitecore in that context. And then the composable headless, or some people call it MAC for microservices, API first, cloud native and headless. Bit of a mouthful, and Contentful is an example of a product like that. And we'll dive into kind of where Drupal fits into that mix a little bit later. Importantly, I've showed this slide many times since 2017. When Drupal 8 was released, Dries himself repositioned Drupal as being for ambitious digital experiences. And with Drupal 8, there was an intentional seeding of the small site market to SaaS platforms in order to target larger scale sites within the enterprise and other organisations that had these complex needs. Now, of course, that created huge angst within the Drupal community, and the fact that Drupal 7 took a decade to reach official end of life tells you everything you need to know about that. And these usage stats on screen can be viewed as evidence of Drupal's inexorable decline. And on an install basis, yes, it's fallen 40% from its peak in 2014, when Drupal was running about 1.2 million sites. And today it runs about 700,000 plus sites. 190,000 of those are still on Drupal 7. But the Drupal Association, with their new marketing focus, has very cleverly redesigned their usage stats so that when you go to that page now, it shows the growth of modern Drupal from version 8 to 11. And that's had 500,000 sites move to modern Drupal. And if you view it in that context, modern Drupal has been incredibly successful. What other platform has grown 500,000 sites over a decade? And the really important thing to note here is that's focused at the upper end of the market with these large enterprise scale sites. And within the Drupal Association, we calculated at a very conservative back of the napkin estimate that the value of the Drupal economy is a conservative $3 billion a year if you include all of the agency projects, all of the internal client teams that are using Drupal, and all of the hosting services around that. Now, Pam didn't identify the name in her talk, but we know that organisations like Apple are using Drupal very extensively internally. I think they've got about 200 Drupal developers or something. We're not really sure what they use it for, but it forms a huge part of what they're using Drupal for. So that gives you an idea of the scale of the economy around Drupal. And if you view Drupal in relation to the rest of the CMS market, for the entire internet, Drupal's still in the top 10 of the most used CMSs, mainly surrounded by SaaS platforms. You've obviously got WordPress with an outsized market share and Joomla still hanging in there. But that's for the long tail of the market, millions of smaller websites. Zoom down to the top 1 million most visited sites, and Drupal's a clear number 2. We see a broader mix of CMS categories here with headless and SaaS, DXP, and even a static site generator at that level. Obviously quite a lot of small sites there still. Zoom down to the 100,000 most visited sites, Drupal's still number 2. Top 10,000 sites, Drupal is still number 2. So despite a sense of doom and gloom, I might have started with, this is a fantastic story. Drupal is the clear second favourite behind WordPress, and it's for sites that people actually visit and use in serious numbers. And as an open source project, again, I've shown this over the years as well, Drupal has never been able to be represented within Gartner's Magic Quadrant by itself because no one owns it. But Acquia have invested heavily in being included, and they've consistently ranked in the leaders segment up in that top right-hand corner, ranked alongside the Adobes and the Optimizely's of the world. And the message here is that Drupal can win big in the current climate where customers are cautious about expensive replatforming because it can provide all the capabilities of those proprietary competitors at substantially lower total cost of ownership. And the message is that if you already have customers on Drupal, or if you're an organisation that's using Drupal, you can have confidence that Drupal's going to continue to meet your needs over the next 5 to 10 years without considering replatforming on one of these very expensive proprietary platforms. And just in the context of AI, will it replace the CMS? Well, of course, we can easily design and launch great-looking websites with AI tools right now. And the static site generators and the SaaS platforms and even WordPress and Joomla, they're at the most risk because people are building those basic brochureware websites with them. And in targeting larger, more complex platforms, Drupal is more insulated. I always hedge statements like this with "at the moment," as a lot of the functions that Drupal provides aren't code that AI can replace. It's the governance and the maintenance and accountability that luckily only humans at the moment can provide. But AI is rapidly changing the speed at which building around Drupal is evolving, whether it's building modules or themes or content migrations, and clients are quickly developing expectations around budgets being reduced and the speed to complete projects increasing thanks to AI. And if you saw Ian's talk yesterday, he was talking about customers contracting them to reduce their costs by 25% year on year thanks to AI. So that's the biggest consideration for digital agencies to get their heads around and to get on top of in order to stay competitive in the long term. So this little section ends on a high note. Drupal has held a very competitive position within the broader CMS market. It competes very effectively at the higher end against both the big DXPs and the composable products, and it's insulated from the biggest impacts of AI for now. So with the continued growth of the web being forecast, that competitive opportunity, it's Drupal's to lose. It's not ours to try and kind of gain market share. But not losing requires keeping pace with change, and so how is Drupal doing that? And the first question is Drupal positioned as a DXP or a composable platform, or is it a hybrid of both? And if you look at, if you do want to have Drupal at the heart of a DXP, then a platform like Acquia is perfect for that, where Drupal's at the heart and it's surrounded by a suite of DXP tools. And as we saw earlier, that is a direct competitor to the likes of Adobe. On the flip side, we in the Drupal world have been working with an API-first composable CMS since 2015. But of course, Drupal's not API only, because you can still leverage all of Drupal's underlying power for things like user management, workflows, content modeling, while still delivering content via headless interfaces and integrating with a range of third-party APIs. And the slide on screen here, again, this is a decade old, where Drupal 8 was pitched as being at the heart of a best-of-breed API-based services platform, and that has not changed. But in the middle, we have this hybrid model where Drupal is used to build sprawling custom platforms that need to combine its power as a CMS to deliver vast amounts of content, with certain services requiring headless interfaces and integrating with multiple third-party APIs. And for many of us, that's Drupal's sweet spot for organisations that require the flexibility in their platform and digital sovereignty over their platforms, thanks to Drupal being open source. And the example on screen is our client, the New South Wales government, who's done exactly that for the past 14 years through all the different versions of Drupal. And the most important thing is that saved our taxpayers millions of dollars in total cost of ownership. It drives work into local digital agencies, keeping that money within the local economy, and that client retains full digital sovereignty over their platform, which is becoming of ever-increasing importance. The EU itself is currently undergoing a whole digital sovereignty strategy, thanks to a certain orange person. So these are some of the enormous benefits of using open source over proprietary technologies. And as Pam talked a lot about, where Drupal has struggled with evaluators is its out-of-the-box experience was typically not that great. And this is what potential customers saw if they downloaded Drupal up until a year or so ago, and I call it our very own blue screen of death. Of course, we as Drupal developers, we knew that behind that was incredible flexibility. All you had to do was sift through 50,000 available modules, and Drupal just developed this reputation for being very complicated, requiring very expensive head hours to do anything functional. And of course, as Pam talked about, this is where the concept of Drupal CMS emerged from. I won't dwell on it too much. But I think the context is that while modern Drupal from version 8 and above did solve a lot of complex problems for big enterprise users, the point release system of Drupal core was very conservatively managed, and there was a sense of stagnation in terms of being able to innovate. And if internal users find it hard to evaluate Drupal and are being wowed by their competitors with all bells and whistles, that became a very, very hard sell. So what we did need was a rallying cry to at least get back to parity in terms of feature set and user experience, and Starshot, that became Drupal CMS, has largely solved that issue. And as Pam said, it took under a year to get to version 1. Earlier this year, we've got version 2. And I do want to call out the fact that that would have not been possible without certified partners within this region. So Drupal CMS, it would not have happened without Pam and technocrats sponsoring her to do that. Similarly, the Drupal AI initiative, Salsa Digital have been sponsoring Kristen Pohl as its program lead, and Morphed have been one of the gold partners with that. And us at PreviousNext, we still put most of our effort into Drupal core, but we were very involved in Drupal Canvas in the early days. And I'll talk more about specific opportunities to get involved at the end. Again, I don't want to kind of repeat what Pam said, but it's all about ensuring that users who ultimately don't care what platform they're using, they don't care if it's Drupal or WordPress or Adobe under the hood, they just want to get things done. And ensuring that this audience has a great experience from the start in their initial evaluation means that they'll hopefully adopt Drupal and then stay on that. And as we see with these large customers, it's 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years that they're going to stay if we get them over the line in that first instance. And the other big benefit that Pam talked about is that Drupal CMS is helping us as digital agencies and even internal teams is to get moving faster, providing higher value quicker at lower cost. And then for agencies, we're still able to provide all of that high-end strategy, design, development, integration, infrastructure management, ultimately making us as agencies more productive and more competitive in the process. Again, I won't dwell on it, but Canvas is a big part of that. We all saw that. We all saw the power of recipes to be able to have one-click installs for custom functionality, and then site templates. And again, this is the example that Morph built for the Australian government. It's basically a one-click install for a compliant government site template. And again, it's all about ease of use, speed to market, and still leveraging that underlying power of Drupal. And then we've seen all the AI advances that have come that can be demonstrated within Drupal CMS, whether that's a chatbot helping you build a site, AI agents building specific functionality, or AI reviewing and enhancing the content. And again, all of that is available in your Drupal sites right now. Pam touched on SaaS platforms. We've got Acquia Source live already. A couple I wasn't even aware of she had on screen, but because it's all open source, there's an opportunity there. You might be a 5-person agency that has this great idea for a SaaS platform based on Drupal CMS for a specific market vertical, and that is completely open to you to create that business. Pam talked enough about this. So I feel very confident that we've kept pace with the market through the innovations over the past couple of years. And then it comes down to how do we leverage that for our own organisations. So I've just got 5 key takeaways. Number 1 is an optimistic outlook. The web's still massively growing. Drupal's kept its prime position within the CMS market. It means that for us as agencies that are smart about things, there is a bright future ahead for us. And for end users, it means Drupal is going to continue to meet your needs well into the future. We are uniquely placed with Drupal in terms of positioning against both DXPs and composable, or a hybrid of the two. And that's enormously powerful in terms of how you're pitching Drupal to clients and within your own organisation's decision makers. And I was talking to Lara yesterday about how she uses Drupal within a big university, and she was saying, oh, well, it's kind of cool that you can do whatever you want within Drupal, because other platforms I've seen, you're very much locked into one way of doing things. And sure, we can lock people into one way of doing things within Drupal, but we still have that power of flexibility. Leveraging Drupal CMS to demonstrate compelling out-of-the-box experiences. I'm sure most of us have spent hundreds of hours building that all singing, all dancing Drupal demo. Now we have Drupal CMS to take care of that. And of course, AI is here to stay. Smart agencies and organisations, I think, are going to thrive in this era as they understand the power of enhanced productivity, while still maintaining that human accountability for very complex platforms. And then the final thing is just living and breathing open source principles. We recently went through a whole kind of brand re-evaluation for PreviousNext, and still came back to what's the most important thing about what we do. It's because we're building things with open source, we're collaborating with our peers and competitors, we're collaborating with our clients, because we have the flexibility and openness to do that. So if that's important to your business or organisation, the message is that you do need to actively contribute to Drupal's future by being involved in the open source side of things. Again, Pam touched on this a bit, but the important thing to re-emphasise is there's no single owner of Drupal. Acquia does not own Drupal. And the not-for-profit Drupal Association is the organisation that does provide all of the infrastructure that we depend on and all of the initiatives that drive innovation and education of our community. And their annual budget is $3 million. Adobe's marketing, sales and product development budget is $3.7 billion for Adobe Experience Manager. So there's a huge mismatch there. But we view it like this at PreviousNext. If you make or you save money by using Drupal, contributing to Drupal's sustainability is an investment in your own organisation's future. And if you're an agency that's not a Drupal certified partner already, there's one question: why not? This is the only global program that independently verifies agencies' capabilities, and the entry-level requirements are relatively minimal. It's not a big lift to get your foot in the door and then build from there. And that Drupal certified partner status is now becoming a key differentiator in client pitches. So it's really a no-brainer for any agency that wants to remain competitive. And for organisations, the message is that if you're choosing a Drupal certified partner for your project, it means that you're working with a company that actively helps sustain the software that your organisation relies on. So $1 to a Drupal certified partner means a portion of that goes back into the Drupal project. $1 to a non-Drupal certified partner, who knows? And financial support of the Drupal Association is also enabling funding for the Drupal product marketing program that provides customers with product awareness and opens up pipelines of agency work. And this has been underway for the past couple of years. Ryan Whitcomb was here. He's got sick this morning, unfortunately, but he oversees Drupal product marketing within the DA. Of course, the reality is Drupal is competing with organisations that have tens, if not hundreds, if not billions of dollars for marketing. So we do need to leverage our open source community and principles in order to have any chance of succeeding with this. And there's a new Drupal marketing initiative that you can express interest in joining via that QR code. Unfortunately, we're going to have a BOF about Drupal marketing, but with Ryan not here, we won't. And then lastly, the Drupal AI initiative is playing a critical role in defining not only how we leverage AI effectively within Drupal, but all of the principles and ethical positions that we can take to maintain that open source ethos of Drupal. This is ramping up in 2026 as more organisations get involved, and you can see the scale of it on the slide. There's 31 partners for that program already, 1.5 million in cash and in-kind services committed, and there's a huge range of initiatives that they're trying to do. Some would say overly ambitious, but you've got to start somewhere. Like all of these initiatives, getting involved gives you a seat at the table, an inside track on where things are heading, and influence in that direction. And ultimately, all of those things are clear competitive advantages for digital agencies. So snap a photo of these QR codes and you can find out more. So I think I managed to not go too far into coffee time.